You know, so many times when we think of Valentine's Day, we think of going out to dinner, going out for a nice romantic dinner in a nice restaurant. And I love going out to dinner. I love a night, getting out of the kitchen and not having to worry about cooking dinner. But it seemed like each Valentine's Day it was Hans that was spoiling me, and I wasn't really spoiling him. And so I had decided that we were going to add a day to Valentine's Day, and I was going to cook him one of his favorite meals and spoil him because, when he works hard all day, his favorite thing isn't coming home and getting all dressed and heading back out again. He loves when we can just stay in and have one of his favorite meals. And so I thought that this Valentine's Day I would put together a little ebook for you and a tutorial. And what I've done is I picked my favorite recipes, or Hans's favorite recipes that he loves me to cook them, and I made a grocery list, and then I made a timeline. And a lot of times, especially with something like Valentine's Day, you don't want to be working all day and feel all worn out by the time you serve dinner. That kind of defeats the purpose of just having a nice evening together. And so often I put together, if I'm trying to do a lot of stuff and pull it all together all at one time, I put together a little timeline, and I do as much as I can the day before and as much as I can in the morning, and say very little till, at the end. It's just kind of bringing it all together at the end. And so I've created a little timeline for you that makes this whole entire meal very doable. You can get it done super efficiently and on time and still feel relaxed and have a fun evening. And so this tutorial, I'm going to go through that timeline. We're going to make this meal together, and we're going to start, this is the day before, and then I'll film today doing what I can beforehand, and then I will film what I do tomorrow morning, and then what I do tomorrow evening. And you'll see just how easy and how doable it is. Now, what it is that's on the menu. Oh, and the ebook has all the recipes in it. So, get your free copy of that by clicking the link below. And so what's on the menu is we're going to do sizzling beef kebabs. It's beef cubes with zucchini and squash. I think that's all that's on there. I'll have to look again at the recipe. And then I'm doing a rice casserole, so you put the kebabs on a bed of rice. And then we're doing a salad, and I make a cheese bowl. It's a Parmesan cheese bowl. You melt the cheese and form it into a bowl. It's actually pretty easy, but it's super beautiful, and it's really yummy. And then we'll make just a simple salad to go in that cheese bowl. And then I'm making a cheesecake pie. It's made with phyllo dough, so if you've never worked with phyllo dough, here's a chance to learn how to do that. So right now, the first thing that we are going to do is get the beef marinated. So I like to mix up the marinade ingredients, and I like to toss my beef cubes in it, and then just keep it in the refrigerator till tomorrow. Now, several times throughout today, I'll give it a little stir, so maybe 2 or 3 times today just to keep the marinade going on all the meat. And then one time in the morning I might give it a little stir. But for the most part, this will all be finished. Now, the recipe calls for beef cubes, which you can just go get the boneless beef stew meat, beef cubes that are about that big. But I had a roast in my freezer, and so I decided to just cube it myself. So you can do that. So basically it's just the beef cubes, and then we're going to put the avocado oil, and all the amounts will be in the ebook, all the recipes there. I've got liquid aminos, which this is a substitute for soy sauce. I don't use soy sauce, so that is the substitute for soy sauce. I've got red wine vinegar, and I've got garlic powder. So I'm just going to give this a stir and mix it up really good, and then I'm going to put some plastic wrap over it and stick it in the fridge. So like I said, maybe 2 more times today, just come and give this a stir, and tomorrow morning, maybe when you get up, you can give it a stir, and then that'll be good. And this is going to make such flavorful, delicious beef kebabs. It is just absolutely our favorite beef kebab recipe. So that's it. You're done. Now we're just gonna, like I said, we're just gonna cover it up and go store it in the fridge. So the next thing on the list to do is to toast some sliced almonds. These are gonna go on the salad. So I just have them in a skillet, a dry skillet, and I'm just gonna let them toast until they're nice and brown, and then I'll just save them for tomorrow. All right, they're getting nice and browned. Just about finished. I don't want to burn them. So I'm just going to put this in a jar and set it aside until I need it in the salad tomorrow night. All right, we're going to stay right here over the stove, and we're going to get done with everything that requires a skillet. So I just wiped this out because it was just dry almonds, and I am melting my butter, and then I'm going to add my rice, and I'm going to brown my rice for the rice casserole. All right, so the butter is pretty much melted. It doesn't have to be all the way melted, and I'm just going to add my white rice. You could do brown rice into the butter, and we're going to cook this until the rice has a browned tint. Don't do it too dark, but just brown it a bit. It's just going to give the rice casserole a really good flavor if you brown the rice in the butter first. It's starting to get a nice golden tint to it, so this is about what you're looking for. So that's done browning, so we're just going to pull this off the fire, and we're going to set it aside and let it cool. And then once it's cooled, we'll put it in something and store it in the refrigerator, and we'll finish making the rice tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and do all my salad ingredients that I can ahead of time so I don't have to do that tomorrow. So I'm going to wash the lettuce, I'm going to break it up, and I'm going to slice the red onions, and then I'll package it all up and store it in the refrigerator for tomorrow. One of the reasons why I love batch cooking is because it really saves on the dishes. I do everything that I can on the stovetop, and usually I can do it all in one skillet, and then I move on to something else. So we have one more thing that we're going to do on the stovetop. So I took the skillet and I just wiped it out with a napkin. There's no need to wash it. We can just wipe it out with a napkin and then move on to making the cheese bowls. So these cheese bowls are really, really pretty. And they're super easy to make, but it does help to have a visual. So we're going to take shredded Parmesan cheese, that's the only ingredient in these, and we're going to lay it out on a griddle, and we're going to cook it until it melts and it gets browned, and then we're going to form it over the top of a jar. So we're going to, turn this back into the skillet, and you can see just how easy these are to make. Okay, so now I have a griddle on a medium flame, and I'm going to let this heat up for just a couple minutes, and then we're going to put our cheese onto the griddle. Okay, now it's been heating up for a couple minutes, and I'm just going to lay a couple pieces of cheese and just watch them. And when I see these beginning to melt, then I know the griddle is hot enough to add the rest of my cheese. Okay, so now it's time to add the rest of the cheese. So I'm just going to go in a kind of like a pancake. Just don't mound the cheese. Do it more of like in a single layer. And I want to make it big enough so that it can hold enough salad. Now, as you can see, I'm kind of moving it because the outer edges aren't getting browned as much as the inner edges. So I'm just kind of moving it so the heat element is directly below the outer edges. Now, an alternative way to do this is you could get a cookie sheet and put a piece of parchment paper on the bottom and put your cheese down on that, and then you could put it in an oven, maybe I've never done it in the oven, but I've heard other people that do it. If this looks too hard to you, you would do maybe a 350, 375 oven, and you would cook it until it looks just like this, and then you would take it up off the parchment paper and form them into the bowls, just like I'm going to show you in a minute. So that is another way that you can do this. I'm going to turn off the heat, and I'm going to let it set here for just a second before I try and form a bowl with it, just to let it get a little hardened. So if you just very carefully lift it up off of the jar. Now, if you don't want to try to deal with forming these into a bowl, the other option is you can just leave them perfectly flat. I've done that. I've done where I just have a flat disc of cheese that's hardened, and I just lay that on the plate and put the salad on top. And then you can, break off little pieces to eat with your salad. I just think these are exceptionally beautiful, but you can leave them flat if you don't want to work with this or a finished salad bowl. So we are done for today, and that didn't take very long. It took me at less than an hour to get everything ready to go. So tomorrow we are going to be chopping up all the vegetables for the shish kebabs, and we're going to be threading them onto the skewers, and you're going to leave them in a casserole pan, cover them up, and just store them in the fridge until you're ready to put them on the grill tomorrow night. And we're going to make the cheesecake. So the very last thing, we actually do have one more thing for today, is we need to take the phyllo dough out of the freezer and store it in the fridge. Now, I don't know what time you're preparing everything, if it's in the morning, because this needs to come out of the freezer about 7 to 8 hours, or like overnight. So maybe if this is morning time that you're pre-making all this, maybe you could leave yourself a note somewhere. So remind you that before you go to bed, go and take it out of the freezer and place it in the fridge. So if you've never worked with phyllo dough, the way that you treat it, they're very thin paper, like tissue paper sheets of dough, and they'll get dried out and start cracking very easily. So you're not going to want to take them out of the pre-sealed bag that they're in until the very last minute. So we take them out of the freezer, we place them in the fridge overnight, and then in the morning we'll take it out of the fridge and we'll leave them on the counter for about 2 hours while we're doing other stuff. So then when we go to make the cheesecake, you're going to want to completely make everything for the cheesecake, and then at the very end you're going to take these out of the bag that they come in, and we're going to get the 8 sheets that we need, lay them flat on the counter, and then you're going to put foil or wax paper or something over it. Then you're going to want to take the remainder of them and roll them back up, put them in a plastic bag, seal it, and you can keep them in the freezer, I think, for about 3 weeks, and you keep them in the fridge for, maybe 4 or 5 days. And with the leftover sheets, go online and find some other fun recipes you can make with it. You can do like chicken pot pies, or just some really gourmet looking stuff, but it's not much work to do them at all. So, because we're only going to use 8 of the sheets out of here. So leave yourself a note to remind yourself to take them out of the freezer, put them in the fridge, and you're done for today. And we'll see you tomorrow morning to continue on. Well, good morning. Today is the day that we're going to serve our dinner. So we're going to do a few things in the morning, and then we won't have anything to do until we finish up and, do the grilling of the kebabs and the last minute stuff. So the first thing that I'm going to do before I make these kebabs is I'm going to place, I use these wooden skewers. You can just get a big package of them for just a couple bucks. And I get a casserole pan and I put about 1 inch of water in it, and I drop my skewers in it and submerge them. And I just let them soak there for a couple minutes. And so that will help when they go on the grill that the wood won't start burning. If they're really nice waterlogged, then they'll cook up really nice. So I've got my beef that I stirred a couple times yesterday and one more time this morning, and I'm going to chop up my vegetables and get them ready. But before I do that, because as soon as I'm done with the kebabs, the very next thing is we're going to do our cheesecake. So like I said yesterday, the phyllo dough, it needs to come out of the refrigerator and just set on the counter for a couple hours before you use it. So I'm going to take it out now, and then it'll be ready by the time I'm done making the kebabs and then I'm making the filling for the cheesecake. This will be ready to use. So this is just going to sit out for now. We've got our sticks soaking, and then I'm just going to chop up all the vegetables and we'll thread them onto the skewers. Now, as you could see when I did the bell peppers, I took the seeds out to start with, and then I cut it in half, and then I cut it in half again, so in fourths. And then each one of those fourths I cut in half again. So I had 8 slices, and then I cut each one of them into, if you can see, those are pretty big pieces. Each wedge I cut into like 3 squares, because you want these to be able to be, almost as big as the meat. So I got those cut up. I'll set those aside, and then with the zucchini and squash, I cut them to be about this thick. And then I'll just put the skewer right through the middle and it'll hold. I don't cut them in half. So actually, maybe I will want to cut them in half. I was just thinking I'll make them a little thicker, but I will do them in half. So let me see how that will. I think those might stay on a bit nicer. Yeah. So do them about this thick, and then do them in half, and that way the skewer can go through, and it's not. I was just thinking if the skewer's going through the middle's more soft and it might slide. Where if you put the skewer straight through here, it's going to hold, because this is real tough right here. So we'll do them in big thick slices and then cut each slice in half. So I'll just slice the rest of these vegetables up, and then we'll get going on assembling the kebabs. Alright, so I don't think I'm going to cut this other one. This is looking like quite a bit of vegetables. And you're probably thinking like, wow, that's a lot of food for just a dinner for 2. But I tend to cook a lot more than I need, and that is what I send for lunch the next day or the next couple days. So since this is one of Hans's favorite meals, I'm going to make a lot more kebabs than what we need for dinner tonight. So these have been soaking long enough. Now I'm going to pour this water out because I'm going to use this casserole pan to store all the kebabs in when I'm done assembling them. Now I usually I don't start with meat because I feel like as it cooks I have a hard time keeping it from falling off on the grill. I'll usually find, you see how it kind of turns up? I'll use this, I'll put it on, and then this kind of will hold, everything will come up against it. So this because it goes like this, it just holds it nicely, and then when I get to the top, I'll turn it, the other way, and it'll just kind of book in all the stuff in between. Now I don't smash all of the different things right up against each other. I do leave a little bit in between just so that there can be some air circulating. It helps for more even cooking. like on the sides. Like when you put this on, if it's smashed right up against, it's going to be a little bit hard for it to cook on the inside. So if you just have a little bit of room there, it's better. And then these, like I said, if you put them on like this, I feel like this is softer inside. It's going to have a harder time staying on. So I'll go this way. Like that, and it's on there pretty solid. So a lot of times there seems to be a lot more vegetables than there is meat. So I don't do like meat, vegetable. I'll do maybe, you know, 2 pieces of vegetable to a piece of meat. And then in the end, if I have a lot of vegetables left, a lot of times I'll just do skewers of straight vegetables, and they're just as good too. So I just would rather fill the whole grill up with lots of kebabs, some meat and vegetables, and some just straight vegetables. So we're gonna go ahead and finish assembling these, and then we're gonna just store these in the refrigerator till it's time to put them on the grill tonight. So there you go. That is a finished kebab. Now sometimes you might get a piece of meat that, like this one, it's longer and thin versus just like a big fat chunk of meat. This one just goes on just perfectly onto the skewer. But this one, it might be flopping around when it's on the grill. So what I'll do is I'll put it on twice. I'll just kind of, you know, poke on one end and then fold it and put it on, and then it'll just kind of cook as one lump of meat, just like this one would be. So we're done arranging the skewers, and it's just kind of fun to do them as far as like alternating colors and vegetables, and feel free to change up your vegetables on these if you want something else, little pearl onions or whatever you want. You can change this up. I just like to do bell peppers and zucchini and squash on this recipe. And then as you can see, I had the leftover squash or zucchini to go on the last one. So I'm just going to cover this in plastic wrap, and I'm going to store this in the fridge until it's time to put them on the grill. So what I'll do is I'll usually take them out of the refrigerator and set them on the counter about the same time that I'm preparing my grill, lighting my grill and cleaning it off and bringing it up to heat. I'll just take my shish kebabs out, leave them on the counter. They'll kind of get to room temperature, and then we'll just pop them on the grill. So that is done, and now we're going to move into making the cheesecake. So we're going to do the filling first while the dough is, the phyllo sheets are still sitting on the counter, and we'll do the filling, and then once that's done, then we'll prepare the crust with the phyllo dough, put it all together and bake it, and then that'll be done. So I'm going to pop this in the fridge, and I'll be right back. So now we get to the fun part. We're going to make the cheesecake. I always enjoy the desserts and working with pastries. So the phyllo dough's been sitting out for a couple hours, and you're going to want to be able to keep this bag. Don't destroy the bag, because these plastic things, they're not long enough. You're going to want to put it back in here. So just start to unroll them. Sometimes the outer one, it just depending on if at the grocery store they left it sitting out at all. Sometimes this first one, it stuck. As you're noticing, it's what it's doing right now. So I'm not going to use this first one. I'll turn it over. Alright, so we're going to remove the sheets that we need and put something over the top of them not to dry out, and then we need to get the rest of these back into a bag. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, so this is the amount that we need. I think I'm just going to lay a towel over it to make it easy. And the rest of these I'm just going to put back into the thing it came in and get it back into the refrigerator. Back into the box. And I'm going to stick it in my freezer and use it within the next 3 weeks. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to butter. I have melted butter in here, and I'm just going to brush this. It's a 9-inch pie plate. Brush it well with butter. And I have preheated my oven to 425, so you'll probably want to do this because this isn't going to take that long. So I'm going to get one sheet. It's so hard to tell which is one sheet. I'm just going to lay it in there. And then I'm going to brush this with butter. The whole thing. And then you're just going to get another sheet and lay it on top and do the same thing until you get through all 8 sheets. And you know, people be like, oh, that's so time consuming, or that, you know, is very tedious. And personally, I make a lot of pie crusts, and I think this is a lot quicker than making a pie crust. This is just brushing with butter and popping it in the oven. And you know, the bottom one, it was kind of lacking right here. It was, you know, on the corners it comes out. So, but right here it was just right to the edge. So on your next sheet, you can kind of alternate them to where now this is overlapping. You know, so by the time you're done, you'll have just a nice, round, flaky crust. Okay, now these very edges that are hanging way over, I trim them off kind of in uneven. I don't do it like in a perfect circle. I just kind of, as you can see, I'm trimming like kind of up and back down again. Just kind of jagged. All right, so the oven is preheated to 425, and I'm going to go pop this in, and it's going to cook for about 6 to 8 minutes just to get it, you know, very slightly browned. Then we're going to make the cheesecake filling. We're going to put it in, and then we're going to finish baking it. So this part's only going to take about 6 to 8 minutes. So I'll be right back as soon as this has cooked. All right, so I just got it out of the oven, and it is super lightly browned, and the center it puffs up a little bit. So I'm going to bring you in close and show you what it is that you want it to look like. But I did want to mention it's a lot easier if you put it on a cookie sheet, because once this is cooked, it's very, very brittle. And if you try and pick it up, see, it just broke, a little tiny piece broke off. So if you try and put your hands underneath it to get it out of the oven, you're going to break all the outside edges. So when it's soft and pliable, go ahead and set it on a cookie sheet before going to the oven. So I'm going to show you guys how pretty it looks. So this is what you're looking for, how nice and lightly browned. You don't want it to get any darker than this, because this still has to go in the oven once the cheesecake filling is in it and cook some more. So you don't want it any browner than this. And when we do put the cheesecake filling in here, we're going to cover with foil the outer edges so this doesn't get burnt. It'll protect it. But look how flaky. Look at that side right there. How pretty that looks. All right, so we're going to set this aside, and we're going to make our filling now. Before I put the cream cheese into my mixer for my cheesecake, I'm going to go ahead and beat the whipping cream for the top of the cheesecake, because I don't want to have to clean my bowl twice, and I don't want to have cream cheese in my whipping cream. So we are going to put the heavy whipping cream, and I'm going to put just a little bit of powdered sugar in there, and we're going to beat it until it's soft peaks. All right, the whipping cream is done, and what I was mentioning about wanting to do my whipping cream before I did my cream cheese filling is I like to wash as little amount of dishes as possible. So if you whip the whipped cream first and then get it into a bowl, store it in the refrigerator till you're ready to use it, then you can do the cream cheese. I don't mind a little bit of whipping cream getting into my cream cheese filling, but I don't want the cream cheese filling getting into my whipping cream. So I just think things out like that and do, you know, the tasks that I need to do in the right order. So whipping cream would go first, and then just dump all the filling ingredients in here and beat that. And so you're looking for your whipping cream, you should be able to pick it up with a spoon like this. So that's perfect. It's not beat so much that it starts almost looking like butter, but it's still really light and fluffy. So I'm going to transfer this into another bowl, put it in the refrigerator, and then we'll move on with the cheesecake filling. Alright, so the pie is just about ready to go in the oven, but like I said, we don't want this outer edge to get too brown because it's just perfect right now. So I've cut 4 strips of foil, and you can just lay them right over the crust. Don't push down too hard because then you'll break it, and it sticks pretty good to the cheesecake filling, and that is going to protect it. So now I'm going to go pop this in the oven, and it's going to cook until the center is set. Alright, the cheesecake is done, and I'm going to show you how you know if you touch it, it's very solid. It's just warm, so it's going to stiffen up even more when it cools in the refrigerator. But if you stick a knife in there, it's like you can tell that that's a solid filling. So we're going to take these off, and see, it completely protected that phyllo from darkening anymore. And this whole thing is going to be covered in whipped cream and fresh berries, so it's okay if you see the knife marks and stuff. So we're going to cool this, and then it needs to be in the refrigerator for about an hour to really chill it, and then we'll finish putting the topping on it and then leave it in the refrigerator until tonight. Alright, we're going to finish off the cheesecake. So I have some jam. I have homemade jam that I make and I can, but if you're buying it, you could buy jelly. Jelly might be better, but I wanted to use what I already had. So I'm just going to stir it up. Just beat it for a minute. And then we're going to put this all over the top of the cheesecake. So really, you could use any kind of berry, jam or jelly. You could use strawberry, raspberry, blueberry, whatever you like. Today I have blueberries to go on the top. I'm just strictly doing blueberries. So I thought it would be nice to get a strawberry flavor in the actual jam. So I want to be really careful that I don't break this phyllo dough as I'm moving it. It is kind of, some of it broke off, but it's okay. So we're gonna put this jam right on top. Now we're gonna top it with the whipped cream. Finishing touch will be the fresh fruit. So like I said, you could do strawberries and blueberries. That would be really good, but I'm just sticking to blueberries this time. And now you're going to want to store this in the refrigerator just so it can get nice and chilled before you serve it. So just keep it in there for the rest of the day until you're ready to serve it tonight. I would not put saran wrap like over the whole thing. You could just lay a simple piece, carefully just let it fall down on top of it, but don't try and seal it. So we're done with that, and we're gonna move on with the rest of our food. All right, so we're within an hour of dinner, probably more like 45 minutes. So we're gonna get the rice put together and into the oven. I've preheated my oven so it can be coming up to temperature while I'm putting my rice together. Now, one thing that I want to bring to your attention, we browned the rice in butter yesterday, and then we just, put a cover on it and stored it in the refrigerator. And when you go to take it out of the refrigerator the next day, the butter is going to have hardened. So this is going to be a hard lump of rice and butter. And you can do one of two things. The first one is you don't have to probably store that in the refrigerator because all it is butter and rice. And I have butter sitting out in my butter dish all the time, and you know, dry rice. That's not something that really needs to be refrigerated. So you can just leave it out on the counter overnight, or if you feel more comfortable keeping it in the refrigerator, then what you can do is just take this bowl, store it in something glass, and as you're bringing your oven up to temperature to cook your rice, you can just set this in the oven, and it'll just take a minute or two to melt the butter, and then you'll be able to get it out of the bowl and continue with the recipe. So I just am going to put the rice, the browned rice, in a casserole dish and add my chicken broth and my garlic salt and give it a little stir. And then if you want, you could add some dried parsley or an herb in here. My garlic salt has parsley in it. So I'm just going to cover it with foil, and then I'm going to just pop it in the oven, and it'll be done in 30, 35, 40 minutes. And so this will be cooking while you're preparing the rest of your dinner, and it will all come out perfectly at the same time. So I'm going to go stick this in the oven, and we will move on to the next thing. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to assemble our salad. It's getting late, so I had to turn the lights on because it's getting really close to dinner time. So I am just going to assemble the salad ingredients, not the salad dressing, just everything that goes into the salad. So all I have to do is pull the salad out and dress it, and then I'm done. So we've got the lettuce that we cut yesterday. We've got the toasted almonds and the sliced red onions. And then I've got dried cranberries. So this is more just amounts that, you know, you like. I don't have some exact measurements. And then I've got some feta cheese. Now that's everything that goes in the salad. So I'm just going to cover this up so it doesn't get dried out. And I'm going to place it in the fridge, and then right before dinner I'll add the dressing, toss it all up, and put it in the cheese bowls. So I'm going to go stick this in the fridge, and then we're going to go get the grill ready. Alright, the last thing you're going to want to do for the shish kebabs is melt the butter, because we're going to be using this to baste over the shish kebabs. So just real quick, melt it and just set it aside. So our dinner is all ready. Now we're at the last part of it where we're just going to grill the kebabs. The rice is just about finishing up. We're going to toss the salad, and the cheesecake is in the refrigerator and chilled, and so we're at the last bit of this dinner. So I've taken the kebabs out. I'm going to let them sit out where the grill's coming up to temperature to just kind of get some of the chill off of them. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to light the grill and let it go for a couple minutes, and then I'm going to come and clean it before I put my kebabs on. So we're just going to let it burn everything off from the last time we grilled. I think we did steaks. So in about 5 minutes we'll be back to put the kebabs on. The grill has come up to temperature, so now we're going to stick the kebabs on the grill. And don't forget that you want to baste it with butter and sprinkle your seasonings on it. Maybe a couple times throughout the grilling time. There's our donkey. kebabs are finished. So the sun's almost down, so I need to hurry and get these off and into the house. The shish kebabs are done and they smell amazing. I took a little piece of meat and it is so tender and so flavorful. You guys are going to absolutely love this recipe. So now I'm going to serve up the dishes and we will be ready to eat. Well, that dinner was so delicious and it was fun making a tutorial for y'all. I really enjoy cooking when I have everything laid out kind of on a timeline. Like if I have to make something that's more than 2 or 3 dishes, it kind of can tend to stress me out. And so I really like putting it on a timeline and doing it that way. It just takes all the stress out. It helps me get everything done all at the same time. Now there's one thing that I want to mention here. You'll notice while I was making the cheesecake, I had originally started out with saying that we were going to make the filling first and then we were going to make the crust and put it all together. But as I started making it, I realized that the crust, the phyllo crust, it was going to have to cool, completely cool before we could put the filling in it. So I went ahead and switched things up and we made the crust first, got it in the oven, and then it was just sitting on the counter cooling while I was making the filling. And because it's just little thin sheets of phyllo dough, it cooled really super quick. So it was pretty much cool. I just had to wait a little bit of time for it to finish cooling that I could put the filling in it. So go ahead and switch that up, make the crust first, let it cool, and then make the filling. So if you really enjoyed this and you're going to try one or more of these recipes, I'd love for you to leave me a comment in the comment box below. I'd love to hear what you thought of the recipes or what you thought of the timeline or just the concept of laying out a timeline. So if you have not gotten the free ebook, the Valentine's Dinner ebook, go ahead and click the link below to access your ebook with the timeline, grocery list, and all of the recipes. So if you enjoyed this, I'd love for you to give me a thumbs up and go ahead and subscribe and click that little bell because you will be notified every time that I post. I bring delicious content to my channel every week, so you won't want to miss anything. So go ahead and subscribe and we'll see you next week.